Hello everyone, this is Gilbert Gillot. I'm talking to you here from CPLSPA downtown. This is Tufts on Tax, where all your tax questions and answers are right here with Mr. T. Scott Tufts. You can call him at 877-647-7887. Again, that number is 877-647-7887. And if you are watching YouTube, you'll find the email and the phone number on the banner below in the bottom. So you can also email him at stufts@cplspa.com. Again, that's stufts@cplspa.com. Hello, Scott. How are you today?
Good to be with you.
Good to be with you too. And we have a lot on our agenda, and we are still in the tax season.
Yep.
And today we are covering 1099-C. So tell us about that. And of course, it sounds like we mentioned 1099, but we had 1099 miscellaneous and other forms. Yep. So there's a lot of 1099.
Different types of forms,
Gilbert.
So a 1099 is not just a 1099 miscellaneous, which is MISC. It is now, there are a number of other 1099 forms that you can get. And this is the time of year you might get one. Many independent contractors would expect to receive what we call a 1099-NEC form. NEC standing for non-employee compensation. You, as a 1099, might get the miscellaneous form for royalties and things of that sort. And then we have today's topic, 1099-C. And that is for cancellation of debt. And so that's kind of an important one. And so let's unpack that, right?
Let's do it.
So let's think of kind of why or how it gets issued. Okay, let's kind of hit that first. So if you are owed a debt and you decide to write it off as a business, you will make that decision at some point in time. Understood?
Okay.
You're carrying an obligation on your books, you're owed money, and at some point you decide I'm going to cancel that debt. Okay? This 1099-C form represents what many might decide to do in that dialogue with their accountant and their tax return preparer. Why would they do that? Well, it is the moment where you're writing it off. What would that mean? Taking a deduction for the amount of that debt, right? And then the question becomes, why are you doing that? Well, you want to match the timing of your deduction. You want to match the timing of your deduction with the year that you're doing it, and yet the form is income to you. So if I'm the business and I'm writing off that debt, I theoretically am thinking about sending you the 1099-C, because I have to notify you, because if it's an expense to me, it might be income to you.
Okay.
So, credit cards, different things. Financial.
So that's if you owe me the money?
No, so in our example, you owe me money.
Okay.
Now, the easiest example are credit card companies and things like that, where if you've gotten a cancellation of the card, and they've just given up, their statute is run for them to collect on that money, you might get a 1099-C in the mail because it's a financial type institution and it's in the business of lending, and it knows that it wishes to send to you a notification that we're done. You're like, oh, good, I'm done. I don't owe it. Well, with the don't owing it, it's income. It's potentially income to you. And then that 1099-C you give to your preparer, and it shows up on your tax form. But there are some exclusions. If you're insolvent and things like this, there might be a way that you prepare your tax forms using Form 982 or otherwise that you attach to the back of your return to show why it should not be income to you. But there's the potential that it's income to you that you've got to get analyzed.
Because something I owed, but I don't have to worry about it anymore.
That'd be pretty good, right?
As if like somebody gave me credit.
Exactly.
Wow.
Well, you borrowed it presumably at one time.
Correct, yeah.
So nothing comes for life for free, arguably.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So there you go. So folks get the form and they're concerned. Now, one of the things comes up, is it accurate as to the amount? Is it the timing correct? Meaning that it's a little bit like basketball, right? And the basket goes in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Buzzer sounds, right? But you got your foot on the 2-point, 3-point line,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're arguing, is it 2 points or 3 points? You understand the basketball analogy?
Yeah.
Well, IRS kind of does that in a way with timing of issues, meaning how come the 1099 is the 1099-C in the right year? So you look at the amount, is it correct? What about the year? Is it the correct year?
So that's part of the qualification to qualify for
Yes,
such
and
a
so
thing.
you want to examine that 1099-C closely. And also on the form, there are codes that come out that describe the code that they insert on the form to tell you why they're making that decision. All right? So one of them would be there's foreclosure, there's an agreement reached, a policy decision, an actual event of discharge, an identifiable event of some kind, bankruptcy, for example. So they have different codes to help guide you as to why they issued the form for them to take the deduction, if you will, or made that business decision. Now, the question we get sometimes is, if this is what financial institutions can issue, a credit card company can issue, right? What about anyone else? Let's say you and me forget that you owe me money, and I decide to just walk away from collecting it from you. So can I just drop a 1099-C in the mail to you and say, here you go? Well, you're going to look at it and say, wow, he wrote off the debt. Or you might look at it and say, I didn't owe any money, right? But a lot of questions we get is, can you issue it, a 1099-C, when you're not a financial institution? Understand?
Okay.
We're just individuals.
Interesting.
You see that? And the problem you're going to get into is, back to like we were talking about the 1099 miscellaneous and NEC form.
Yeah.
What do you do if this is all made up and it's an illusion? And I just send you a form because I want to stick it to you.
Oh,
I shouldn't be allowed to do that, right?
I hope so.
Right. And now here, and it gets even more interesting. What happens if you get a 1099-C? Should you be able to use it as proof that you don't owe it anymore?
Interesting.
Right?
As an individual.
As an individual.
Okay.
So you get a 1099-C, should you be able to wave it around and say, I don't owe it anymore? What happens if credit card companies transfer it to another companies? You got it in a 1099-C. Can you go and use that against another company to say, I don't owe it?
To use it also to fix credit, for example?
Right. Well, or to say, for example, yes, as a proof. How proof is it? And we've talked about this. The 1099 is not the end, it's the beginning. Remember, we've talked about this. So our audience needs to understand that 1099 is a position paper. It is the starting point of evidence gathering. It's not the end point.
Interesting.
For example, if I cancel your debt,
the tip of the
and you
line.
know I've canceled it, and I don't send you a 1099-C, I assume you know that if I have truly canceled what you owe, you might have income, right, under the same thing, and whether or not you get a 1099-C isn't the analysis, right?
Yeah, that's getting complicated.
Well, no. So let's take it this way: you're an employee.
Back and forth on
If
this.
you don't get a W-2, but you know you made wages all year,
Yeah, of course.
right? You've got to report them, right?
Definitely.
Just because you don't have a W-2 doesn't mean, oh, I'm in the clear.
No. Yeah, that's a good way of
See what I'm
looking
saying?
at it, yeah.
So what we're trying to do here is understand that a 1099 or information return, you need to be on top of, did I get one, right? What do I do with one?
Or do I need one?
Or do I need one? Or do I need to file one if you're on the other side?
Correct.
And then, but you can't stop there and say, well, I didn't get one, so therefore I don't have to do anything if the events actually happen.
Yeah.
Right? We're in a movie and we have segments of year by year, and in the tax world we look at what happened in the definitive period of January.
You can't just wipe it out.
No. Well, 1099-C gives you the opportunity to look at, if debt's been canceled, are you going to be able to say that it's subject to an exclusion? And just so folks know, 1099-C, if it's accurate as to amount and it's properly issued, I'm not saying it is, but if you come to that conclusion, there's still work for you to be done on your preparer and you to figure out whether or not it's subject to an exclusion, one of which is an insolvency exception, and there's some others, but basically would allow you to, even though it's kind of like a gift. Gifts can come to you, but by the tax laws, they're not taxable to you as income tax.
Correct.
Because gifts are that's the policy they've made.
And you said that could be
well, this could be like that in the sense that a 1099-C would be income to you,
but not taxable.
but not necessarily taxable income to you.
Interesting.
So this is why your tax forms will say taxable income, because there's things that we've decided are not taxable, just like we've decided things are taxable, and then on and on and on, right?
Interesting.
Right? So this is why on your tax forms you have so many lines trying to describe the categories, right? All right. So this is debt, cancellation of indebtedness, and so forth. What else I want to say? And this is the time of year at the end of this month where this form will start to appear. So if you've got this form and you've got questions, you're going to want to get into the discussion about is it accurate and so forth and so on, and make sure your preparer is aware of this form, and then how are you going to deal with it.
Why the end of this month?
Because 1099s are all going out at the end of this month, by and large.
Okay.
Now, there's some exceptions that
Depending
they may go
on
out
the
next
companies.
month, but this is the time when 1099s have to go
It
out.
starts, yeah.
So this is why it's tax season, but we're very early on in the tax season, but those 1099s are going out, or they hopefully are going out, and then you get them, and then you have time before April to figure that out and have that enjoyable experience. Now, again, on the 1099-C, look for the date, look for the amount, make sure they're accurate.
Absolutely.
Got it?
Sounds like a plan for that.
Yes, and we say don't panic, because with this form, at least, again, you're looking at it, and I guess this is really a big message with all of this stuff. Don't panic. Look in the four corners of some tax document and know there's probably a lot of data in there, and I'm trying to help folks not gloss over, but zero in and look at it and see if it's
After
accurate.
all this information?
Yes.
No,
You can't
not at
gloss
all.
over.
No,
But you got to.
absolutely not.
So don't panic. Square down. Look at it. If you still have questions, get to someone like me who can take a look at the form and see if it's
Yes.
what it purports to be.
And what prompts them to do that? Like, what point? I know there is a time. When do you file this, right? Or when
Well,
do you
but
request it?
we talked about this with the 1099-C. It's someone who is owed money who decides to have a bad debt expense, right? Write it off.
What makes them decide that? So I can't just out of the blues, just decide, okay, well, I'm going to take this part of debt of the business and then just write it off with this.
Well, but if I debt, as long as it's out there, doesn't do anything for me tax-wise, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not paying me, but I'm in a business,
After a certain period of time.
period of time, my
like,
statute runs or whatever.
what is it, a
Might
month?
I? Yeah.
A year?
Well,
or
it
2
could
years?
be 10 years on judgments. I mean, there's all kinds of things.
okay.
But the thing is, I can get, if I'm getting a write-off, I'm reducing my bottom line income, taxable income, right? So you ask, why would I do that? Well, what would prompt it is, I have less tax to pay if I give up on the debt,
Okay.
right? That's owed to me.
Because as long you're holding to it and trying to collect it,
You can't do this. You can't play that game. You can't write it off and then still try and get it.
oh yeah, of course not. Yeah. Oh, I wasn't intending to ask that, but that's a good point.
Right,
That's a good
right.
point to bring up.
And if you get a 1099-C and you find out that I haven't written it off my books, then what now?
Oh wow.
Aren't
Yeah.
I doing something that shouldn't be allowed? Like, right?
A lot to think about.
Right. Like you may say, no, I really do owe it. I still owe it. See how that works? So
I won't insist on owing it.
well, I was going
anymore.
to say, but probably not. but
yeah.
if we're getting into
True.
and maybe finalize this. So taxes impact all of us, right? And this just is a great
Absolutely.
example where you see where one side of the ledger goes one way, the other side. If there's an expense, there's probably income, right?
Absolutely.
So this gives us a little bit of a touch or taste of, I get a write-off, you get income. And if the worlds don't match, right, then what can happen? And what I mean by that is, if I'm looking at a write-off, right, and we'll do this another time, but think about this. Let's say you're a tax-free company, right, and you don't really care about income, right, then maybe we have to look at those arrangements a little more closely. And so all I will say is, when we talk about income and expense, we're always looking at this and some other things.
And to see both sides, how
Exactly.
they look at it, the point of view of every side, and how it affects them.
Exactly right.
Yeah, that's
Because we've talked about how forms can be issued and perhaps done in a vindictive way, harassing way, or in an untoward way, or allegedly improper. If we're getting into that, then we definitely want to try and get to those situations, because the federal tax laws may have some things to protect you from that if someone's using tax forms in a way they shouldn't. And so we want to be on top of that and help out with those situations.
yet
as well.
following the regulations of the IRS and what
Right.
not.
Yep.
Well, you heard him, folks. If you have any questions about that, and if you're wondering or if you're confused about this form and what you should do, you need a legal advice, call T. Scott Tufts at stufts@cplspa.com. You can email him at stufts@cplspa.com, and you can call him at 877-647-7887. That number is, again, it's 877-647-7887, and we'll be happy to assist you and help you with any legal tax needs you need. Thank you, and see you next time.
Thank you.